6 years and 220 million. This is what it took Moglix to grow from seed to unicorn and become the 13th Indian unicorn in 2021 alone, after it raised 120 million in Series E funding. I'm Alice Basomi, VP Investment at Jungle Ventures, and today I'm in conversation with Rahul Garg, founder and CEO of Moglix, the leading B2B e-commerce for industrial products, and a close friend of Jungle. Welcome, Rahul. Good to have you with us today.
It's been an exciting journey, and I think it's great to have Jungle being a partner of the journey and seeing it and working closely on how we grow the organization to this scale. And this is just the beginning.
So, first things first, how did you pick that industry, that problem at that point in time? Was there, a sense of urgency to fix something? Was it through serendipity? I'm curious to learn what was the process.
So I think, as many of you might know, I spent 5 years with Google before starting Moglix, and had a vantage point where I was working with commerce companies, ad tech companies, map tech companies, travel companies across the length and breadth of Asia. And one of my stints was also leading Google search, all new product launches for Asia. And one of our failed attempts was actually launching Google for Business, trying to disrupt the entire ecosystem of suppliers, which is on Alibaba, and coming on to Google as a platform. And I realized during that journey, plus working with the commerce and seeing Indian e-commerce move towards consumer coming online, that yes, a lot of action happening on the consumer e-commerce front, but the businesses are still living in a very, very old technology, old ways of communication, old ways of managing the supply chain. And this needs to change, because we are talking of almost anywhere between 20 to 30% of the country's GDP, which is working in an old school manner and has been like that for, let's say, 5 to 7 decades. And I think that's what continued to increase my curiosity. I've always been passionate about picking large problems which drive large impact over a period of time. So this problem was there. I mean, it was for somebody to pick it up. And I grew up in a family of engineers where we have been always close to manufacturing and very, very passionate about how we can drive the manufacturing sector to grow to $1 trillion, which is a vision for India. And I felt that I could play a part in that by launching Moglix.
At that point in time, there were players in the market already, right? Some marketplaces, some listing businesses. So how do you kind of build a distinct and strong value proposition that was sticky enough to make your customers grow? And I remember you started by providing a software, and then you added the marketplace. So how do you look at starting in a market with some competition existing and really building something which is a distinct and strong value proposition?
So firstly, I think if you look at it, when we started, yes, the only platform that existed was a classifieds platform. And the classifieds platform typically tries to connect based on a customer query to a supplier, a potential supplier of product or service. And these journeys in India has been broken. We have seen in the consumer commerce that every single classified platform has been disrupted continuously by a transaction-oriented platform. Whether you take, in past, you would try and call a restaurant and try to get the food delivered or food pickup. If you take a cab service, if you take a plumber, electrician, every single consumer service has gone through that journey of moving from a classified to a transaction oriented. Because a customer or an end business at the end of it want that product or service with high quality being delivered. And this was an unmet need. Now the thing is, in businesses, this complexity increases because it's not as simple a decision making, as simple a payment process, as simple the kind of SLAs that may be required. Because if you're working with manufacturing organization, a product does not arrive, if manufacturing plants, probably the production line is getting impacted, you would have millions of dollars of lost production, things like that. Also, you need to be aware of what is going to be the buying process and so on and so forth, because it is critical that an organization professionally is looking at what are the kind of total costs that they have associated with the particular purchase that is happening. So for us, it was like the end-to-end study of like the entire customer experience journey. And I believe at that point in time that nobody was focused on thinking about the problem end to end. People would apply a little bit narrow viewpoint of trying to pick up one piece of the problem, but not look at it as a full stack solution, which needed to stitch together the entire customer journey end to end. And that's where I think the combination of software technology, combination of our warehousing and commerce capabilities, I think we started to build all of that. And even as we stand today, while unicorn is one of the steps that people talk about and want to sort of understand, but if you look at it, we are still less than 1% of the market. So we are looking at like probably 50 to 100x from where we are today. So we are still in the pursuit of solving the customer problem to the extent that it needs to be solved for the future.
How did you go about surrounding yourself with the first set of people, stakeholders, advisor? Who did you hire? What skills were you hiring for? Any learnings that you took from your previous experiences in startups, but also, corporates like Google, on how to start this journey?
It has its own limitations in terms of how many people can you brainstorm to and how do you kind of go about it. I think I was lucky because I think it depends on the stage of professional career journey that you're starting, because one, I had, having spent 15 years, obviously I was getting exposed to various dimensions of the business, whether it is looking at strategy, whether it is looking at sales and marketing, whether it is about building product and engineering. So when you spend that time and kind of invest in yourself, invest in your capability building, as well as invest in teams and partners over a period of time, I think I was lucky enough to attract a lot of partners from the early days who sort of believed in what I was trying to accomplish. And it goes across for team members, it goes across for investors, it goes across for partners who early believed in that. And many of them were betting on the credibility and demonstration over the 15 years, because it is not purely luck. It is the accumulated experience, knowledge, hard work of 15 years where people start to bet on you as an individual. And it's very, very important that unless you build that entire ecosystem around you, even if you are a single founder or two founders, you need to build that ecosystem around you. And many of those people are buying into this concept that and the vision that you are embarking on. And there's an interesting quote from one of the popular leaders in India. It is about Ekla Chalo, which is basically like you might start your leadership journey by yourself, but if you are on the right track, people will come along and you will build the right force that is required to realize your vision. And I think that's probably one of the inspiring quotes for me in terms of when I started the journey and continue to build the people around to be able to realize the vision that we set on to.
And during the first 12, 18 months, how fast did you grow the team and how early do you invest in headcount to drive the next step and stage of growth?
So I would say our first 12 months was actually fairly slow, because being a category sort of defining company, you are trying to understand a lot. So we traveled to almost like 15 cities across multiple countries, understanding B2B ecosystem across, because we are passionate about understanding what the hell is going on across the world. And we had certain vision. I built some of the early team members, started to iterate on the product, started to iterate on the supplier ecosystem, customer ecosystem, all of that. So I would say our first 12 months was purely iterative. So we launched only after 12 months, technically, our alpha product, where we felt that we had the next level of understanding of the customer problems, supplier problems, the kind of technology platform to be built, the kind of infrastructure we would need to be able to service the customer need. So technically our launch is 1 year after having gone through that cycle of traveling across the world and learning from different B2B ecosystems. And we invested early on in building 6 to 7 leaders who started to work on different facets of the problem, going deeper. It's a very strong combination of technology, supply chain, manufacturing expertise, because we felt all of those had to come together, because in some sense we are a multidisciplinary organization, and that's where we needed to build a strong team which brings all of these dimensions together to be able to find a solution which can stitch together and provide the customer experience we wanted to deliver.
How do you get these first 10, 50 customers? What are the type of learnings and challenges to get these, and especially in a fairly low tech industry?
I think it's a challenging exercise, and it probably remained challenging for first 24 months because we would walk into a manufacturing customer and he will say like, I understand, I buy from Flipkart, I use Ola, or I use whatever, the food delivery and so on and so forth. But I believe in my professional setup. I mean, this is how I've done for like 20, 30 years. Most of the profile of people, we are talking of like 45-year-old to 60-year-old, right? So they would have done this in a certain fashion for 20, 30 years, right? So it's a disruptive concept to them, right? And even though they are seeing the consumer journey, they're not still fully clear whether that's how the business journey may look like or should look like. But I think the beauty when you are the kind of category defining, I think you are always envisioning not for what was the past, but what should the future look like? What should the future look like 5 years from now? Is India as a country which is fast growing, where people are continuously the next generation of people that is coming in, which is super tech savvy, super looking for kind of a great customer experience, so on and so forth. Will they continue to like the way this person has operated or the old systems and processes? And we literally build a hypothesis which is around when was the manufacturing sector born in India, when will the promoters will have the next generation come in, when will the third generation come in, and what will happen by 2025, what will happen by 2030, what will happen by 2035, all of that dimension. Because we invested pretty much saying that this is going to be a long-term game to be done, and we are all committed for long-term. But what should it look like in 2030? And since we were convinced that this is what it should look like, I think it doesn't matter how many naysayers you get, but you got enough number of early adopters who were willing to, based on our credibility, based on the concept, based on the future vision that we were selling, willing to try.